A growing area school district is proposing a new elementary school.
But the two gas pipelines running by the property could pose hidden dangers. Investigative reporter Claudia Vargas explains why some residents and pipeline experts are concerned.
This is Clover.
Brianna Stevens and her husband bought a home on 3 acres in Delaware County this past summer.
And I wanted to raise our kids in an environment that was healthier and calmer and peaceful.
The couple is expecting their first child. They were excited to hear about a proposed elementary school right across the street.
We were like, oh, yay, that's great. You know, that's convenient. That's nice.
That is, until they learned about the 2 gas transmission pipelines running through a corner of the proposed school property.
The last thing we want is a school built on a hazardous environment for children to play on.
The Rose Tree Media School District wants to build a new elementary school on a 36-acre plot in Edgemont. School officials have been talking up the project at various community meetings.
All the municipalities except Edgemont have an elementary school.
But what is hardly discussed is what's beneath part of the proposed site. 2 20-inch gas transmission pipelines operated by Enbridge.
I can't imagine what's worse than a pipeline being on the property that you're choosing to build a school.
And experts such as Bill Karam, who runs the Pipeline Safety Trust, say residents have reason to be concerned.
Yeah, I am surprised that a new school would be built so close to a gas transmission line, because we all want to keep our kids safe, and the lines do pose a risk.
If gas were to leak out and ignite, it could cause an explosion.
You're going to have like a flamethrower until they can stop feeding that explosion with fuel.
Take a look at what happened in 2016 in western Pennsylvania. A pipeline outside of Pittsburgh blew up. It is the same Enbridge system as the one in Edgemont. It severely injured a man and destroyed a quarter-mile of land, including at least 1 home.
That explosion in Pittsburgh, for example, was due to corrosion on the line, and that's a big concern on these older lines.
The 2 Enbridge lines that run on the proposed Rose Tree Media School site are 60 and 80 years old, respectively.
40 years and more, it does become a concern. They become less reliable.
Enbridge declined our request for an interview. In an email, a company spokesman says that Enbridge's pipelines are routinely inspected and monitored around the clock. In federal filings, Enbridge reported 7 gas leak incidents in Pennsylvania since 2013. In most of those, parts of the pipeline failed. But Rose Tree Media School Board member Jackie Gussick says the 2 Enbridge pipelines running through the proposed school property do not pose a safety risk.
Consultants have given no indication that the pipeline should be a concern for the school to be located at this site.
The district did send us pipeline research it has looked at, but those reports reference other pipelines that are 2,000 feet and more than 2 miles away from the site, not the 2 pipelines on the property.
That was part of our research, looking at the documentation that was available to us at the time to help inform our decision.
The district already paid more than $1 million for part of the land. It is in the process of acquiring 25 more acres. But the town's planning board still has to approve a zoning change to allow for a school to be built at that location. At a recent planning meeting, Brianna brought up the issue of the pipelines.
I have even more doubts about sending my child even closer to the pipeline.
We bring up the pipeline at every single meeting, and we're just told that they'll do an evaluation and they're sure that it's safe.
But so far, no analysis or report for those pipelines on the school property has been publicly disclosed. For the investigators, Claudia Vargas, NBC 10 News.
And if it's built, that school will be one of dozens close to pipelines. The NBC 10 investigators have actually mapped out school locations in southeastern Pennsylvania. You can go to NBC10.com/pipeline to see just how close your child's school is to a pipeline. To this now, a proposed elementary school in Delaware County has some residents fearing the worst because of 2 large pipelines, gas pipelines that run under the corner of the site. As the NBC 10 investigators found out, other school districts have long coexisted with pipelines near or sometimes right on their properties. Investigative reporter Claudia Vargas shows us.
A hazardous liquid pipeline and valve station behind Glenwood Elementary Media had school administrators in a panic 3 years ago. Jim Cunningham was on the school board at the time.
We went through 2 years of difficulty with the Glenwood Elementary School and the pipeline that crossed behind it. A lot of controversy.
The district wrote letters to the state calling for an investigation. It joined a lawsuit against Sunoco, the operators of that pipeline, saying that the project exponentially increases the risk of harm to the students, staff, and visitors.
Spending money to go into litigation on it.
The litigation is still ongoing, but the Pennsylvania Public Utilities Commission last week denied the long-standing request to move the valve station from behind Glenwood Elementary. Now, Cunningham and some other residents are upset about yet another school and pipeline situation.
Deja vu all over again. We didn't learn from our history.
The Rose Tree Media School District is purchasing land in Edgemont to build a new elementary school.
Surprise, surprise, there's a pipeline running through the project.
Not one, but two 20-inch gas transmission pipelines, which experts tell the NBC 10 investigators can be dangerous.
It can either cause a gigantic fire, but it's also capable of creating an explosion.
Even with its past concerns over one of its schools near another pipeline, current school board member Jackie Gussick defends the district's decision to move forward with the Edgemont location.
That site did not indicate as high risk.
If the plan does come to fruition, it wouldn't be the only school with gas transmission pipelines running by the property or with other pipelines in close proximity. The NBC 10 investigators mapped out all schools and pipelines in our southeast Pennsylvania region. We found that dozens of schools in our area sit near hazardous pipelines.
As you can see, the pipeline behind me, runs just adjacent to our entryway.
Perkiomen Valley School District Safety Supervisor Dean Miller tells us Skippack Elementary School has been operating since 1998. And the two parallel gas transmission pipelines were in the ground long before then. They're tagged with these orange markers.
There is a little bit of anxiety that you have having this close, but as I mentioned earlier, it's all about respecting what's here.
Miller says his ground crews know who to call and what to do should something seem off. The pipelines on the Skippack Elementary property are part of the same system as the pipelines in Edgemont.
If there was an issue with the pipeline, the recommended preliminary evacuation is 1,000 feet. So, we're within that 1,000 feet.
His district has 5 other schools also impacted by pipelines, and each one has a safety plan.
Have you ever had any issues with any of the pipelines?
We have not. We've been very fortunate.
Back in the Rose Tree Media District, opponents of the new school location wonder why the district is so set on a site so close to the pipelines.
It's not a case that we must build here. We don't have to build here. We have options. So what is the obsession with this location?
For the investigators, Claudia Vargas, NBC 10 News.